Jurors in the Drew Peterson trial could get the case as early as today.
This is ABC 7 News, Chicago's #1 news, with Jose Sanders, Judy Sue, weather with meteorologist Tracy Butler, and Roz Barron's traffic. This is ABC 7 News this morning.
It is 5:48 right now. When we come back here this morning, a closer look at what to expect as the Drew Peterson murder trial comes to a close. Legal expert Thomas Glasgow will be joining us right here in the studio coming up next.
Attorneys deliver closing arguments at Drew Peterson's murder trial today.
And then the case goes to the jury. And this morning, our legal expert, Thomas Glasgow, joins us right now to talk more about closing arguments today. Good morning, Thomas.
Good morning, both of you.
Well, let's talk about both sides, both the prosecution and the defense, and what points they're going to be striking home today, starting with the prosecution.
Prosecution's going to emphasize that this is a circumstantial case. This circumstantial evidence is just as good or better than direct evidence. You've got several people. They're going to emphasize the fact that you've got a mountain of evidence that's been brought against Drew Peterson, that you've got a nursing student, you've got a reverend, you've got a police lieutenant, you've got a lawyer, all of which coming from different sections of society, all of which didn't have any connections prior to this, coming forth to testify against Drew Peterson. And they're going to emphasize on the actions of Kathleen Savio, of Drew Peterson, and then on the statements from Stacy Peterson. The actions of Mrs. Savio, they're going to say, look, she knew she was going to die. She installed deadbolts. She went and got an order of protection. She put her affairs in order. She ended up asking to end up getting some form of protection so that her children were raised after she was dead.
But no one has testified that Drew Peterson actually killed Kathleen Savio. And I guess my question is, how often are juries willing to convict with only circumstantial evidence?
They do it all the time. And you have to look at it from a jury's perspective. In murder cases, jurors will sit and look at a person and they'll say, well, a murder was committed. If they believe that threshold issue of a murder was committed, they've got their experts, you've got your experts, they tend to put all that aside and then focus on the witnesses. They're then going to say, do I let this person go back out into society? Because if they do, then they have to deal with that. The Casey Anthony trial is one that was very interesting to me because they, according to the jury interviews, made up their decision within the first witness. When the father testified, they didn't believe that she had killed the kid. And they sat down and listened intently to the remainder of this, but you saw that they had kind of drifted off. Right. In this situation, you've got a jury that's dressing the same, that's got a lot of unity. You know, there's a lot of speculation as to why they're doing it, but I don't really suspect that there's going to be a very long deliberation on this because of the fact that you've got such unity amongst this jury.
What do you think about the fact that Peterson did not testify?
I think that that is probably his best bet. I mean, Drew Peterson in the media has gotten into a situation where he is been vilified in the public domain. And for him to get on the stand would just emphasize everything that he had done before. He would have the fodder of being able to be cross-examined on his prior statements and the issues that he had brought up before. They don't play very well, police officers, when they testify as civilians because they're used to testifying from that position of authority. You put them into a civilian role and they're really not comfortable testifying, and you got to get that likability factor, which I think has been a real issue for him by going out into the media.
So you want to give a prediction?
I think it's going to be a quick verdict.
Well, there's one prediction for you, but let me get to this whole issue of it seemed like there were a mountain of mistakes, perhaps on both sides. That's grounds for an appeal if there's a conviction, correct?
This case is a complete mess. From the beginning to the end, I think you're going to go, if he is convicted, I think you're probably going to end up going through the legal system, not only on the mistakes and the issues that were raised during the course of this with the closely balanced evidence and whether or not this was admissible, but the hearsay issues alone, I think, are enough to make this wind through the appellate courts and finally the Supreme Court for years and years and years. Are we comfortable as a society convicting someone on hearsay after the fact, after the person's dead, and then people start coming forward saying, yeah, I know he did it.
Thomas Glasgow, thanks so much for your expertise.
Thanks,
we appreciate it. Of course, we'll be monitoring today's developments with reporters in the court and bring you the latest information on our news at 11 and at abc7chicago.com.
Coming up next, Tracy